Chapter 27. The Black Pope. I cannot include information about the Black Mass without giving the reader information about supposedly the most powerful man in the world who is named the Black Pope. In May 2000, the Spectrum newspaper published an article about Count Hans Kolvenbach, the Jesuits' general, also known as the Black Pope. The Spectrum newspaper got to speak to the author of Vatican Assassins, Eric John Phelps. The paper says that there is good reason that the Vatican library is so extensive and intact from outside intrusion, and it's because it contains sensor data about our true, otherworldly cultural heritage, so that this book does not become a mammoth. Volume 1 have included the most interesting parts from the interview between the newspaper and Eric John Phelps, and even though the interview was from the year 2000, I had to include it because it uncovers the veil for us all. The Superior General of the Jesuits is, I believe, the present Jesuit General, Count Hans Kolvenbach. I call him Count Hans Kolvenhoof. In 2000, the General is Dutch. He resides in Rome at the headquarters of the Jesuits called the Church of Jesus. It's not far from the Vatican. It's the headquarters of the Knights of Malta. The Jesuit general and the other high Jesuit generals are sorcerers. They are Luciferians and they worship what they call Lucifer. They do not believe in Satan, they believe in Lucifer. You can see a picture of Count Hans Kolvenbach and his top Jesuits in a book named Jesuits, a multi-biography, by Jean Lacouture, published in 1995. The high Jesuits elected him and he's elected for life unless he becomes a heretic. They represent the high fourth degree, and I would say that they are professed. When a Jesuit is professed, he is under the Jesuit oath. He is under the bloody oath which is in my book. The Jesuits obviously wrote the protocols because they have carried out every protocol in that little handbook. The Jesuits are the ones in the government. They are the ones behind professional sports. The owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers is a Knight of Malta. The owner of the Detroit Lions is a Knight of Malta. All your top owners of these ball clubs, for the most part, are Knights of Malta, getting the people whooped up in this hoopla over games and sports while they're busy creating a tyranny. One of the things in the protocols is that they would create amusements. Another one was Disney World, Disneyland. Another was Milton Hershey with Hershey Park. They create amusements, games and pastimes to get people drunk with pleasure while they're busy overthrowing the Protestant form of government. Las Vegas for the most part is controlled by the mafia, but the high mafia families are Roman Catholics, so they are subordinate to the Pope or the Cardinal of New York because the Mafia Commission resides in New York. Frank Costello was a member of the Mob Commission, so the High Knights are good, dear brothers with the High Mafia Dons, the Gambanis, the Lucchese, the Colombos, all of them, and they control Hollywood, not the Jews. It's only Jews that are the front men who are involved in Hollywood and working for the Mafia and for the Cardinal. Just like in politics it would be Alan Spector. Alan Spector was Cardinal Spellman's Jew in the assassination of JFK, and he would never say a word about it. JFK was assassinated because he wanted to end the Vietnam War and he wanted to end the rule of the CIA. Rome wanted the war and they controlled the CIA. Cardinal Spellman, who controlled General William Westmoreland, the commander of the U.S. forces in Vietnam, was controlled by the Jesuits of Fordham and the people in Vietnam. The Buddhists were unconvertible. They wouldn't convert to Catholicism and didn't need Rome. The Jesuit general is the absolute, complete and total dictator and autocrat of the order. When he speaks, his provincials move. The provincials are his major subordinates. There are around 83 provincials. As I understand it, the Jesuit order had divided the world into 83 regions. For each region there is a Jesuit provincial. There are 10 provincials in the United States. There is one for Central America. There is one for Ireland. So it's the old Babylonian provincial government, centered in Nebuchadnezzar or the Jesuit general himself. So it's a strictly Roman form of government where all the states or provinces are subordinate to this worldwide sovereign. The Jesuit general exercises full and complete power over the order. He meets with his provincials. When they decide to start a war or agitation, he gets the information from the provincial of that country, how best to go about this, the demeanor of the people, and then he uses legitimate grievances to foment an agitation, like the 1964 civil rights movement. That was all a Jesuit agitation because the end result was more consolidation of power in Washington with the 1964 Civil Rights Act that was written by Reverend Theodore Hesburgh. The Jesuit general rules the world through his provincials. The provincials rule the lower Jesuits, and there are many that are not professed, so they have no idea what's going on at the top. They have no concept of the power of their order. It's just like the Freemasons. The lower have no idea that the high Shriner Freemasons are working for the Jesuit general. They think that they are doing work and being good people. The bottom line is that the high-level Freemasons are subject, also, to the Jesuit general because the Jesuit general with Frederick the Great wrote the high degrees, the last 8 degrees, of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry when Frederick protected them when they were suppressed by the Pope in 1773. So you have the alignment with the Jesuit order and the most powerful Freemason they had in the craft, Frederick the Great. During the suppression, the Jesuit order has no women. They have no love for a woman, because to have a wife, to have a woman, means you have allegiance to your wife and family, and you cannot obey the general. That's why they will never be married, and that's one of the great keys to their success. They can betray a nation and walk away. They can betray all the Irish Catholics getting on the Titanic and walk away. They can betray the US in Vietnam and walk away. They can betray us every time we go to hospital and get radiated and cut and drugged and walk away because it's for the greater glory of the God that sits in Rome. Their ultimate goal is the rule of the world, with the Pope of their making, from Solomon's rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. The Jesuits have always wanted that. Ignatius Loyola started the order but failed to start the order there in Jerusalem. He went to the Pope in 1540 and created the Jesuit order. He wanted to put together a legion of soldiers and warriors to get back what Rome had lost, as well as institute a world government for the Pope. Loyola was a soldier and a lawyer. The Pope Pius III chartered them and the Jesuit order was created, and it has papal protection, and they began their history of deeds of blood. War after war after war are attributed to the Jesuit order. Virtually everything they own has been given to them or stolen by them, including the fortunes of the Jews in World War II. What's been released is nothing compared to what they've taken. In a book by Edmund Paris called The Vatican Against Europe, it goes into detail about what they did. The last 30 years of war is all attributable to the Jesuits, massacres of the Serbs, Jews, etc. But Edmund Paris didn't understand that the Jesuit general is in complete control of the international intelligence community, the CIA, FBI, KGB, Mossad, German BND and the British SIS. The Jesuit general is in complete control of all of these. So if he wants to find something out about an individual, they put in the social security number and everything from all of the intelligence agencies kicks in, and his provincials can review everything about a man. Credit cards, you name it. Everything is attached to Rome's social security number, which the FDR put upon Americans in 1933 with the help of Spellman. At the time, I believe he was Archbishop, or maybe it was Cardinal Hayes, but Rome was behind FDR in putting him into office, in giving people a social security number. which is Rome's number. They want everybody using it for everything: driver's license, tax return, credit card, and everything you do is yours and is Rome's number. Louis Freeh, head of the FBI, is a good Roman Catholic altar boy, probably a Knight of Columbus, but I can't prove it. The Knights of Columbus implement Jesuit politics, and Louis Freeh was the one behind both the Waco atrocity and the Oklahoma City bombing atrocity. His top sniper was a Japanese Roman Catholic named Lon Horiuchi. So it's the Roman Catholics in control, Knights in control of the FBI, and both Louis and Lon are personally accountable to Cardinal O'Connor of New York, who is the most powerful cardinal in the country. He is the military vicar, and that's why Bush kissed his ass for going to Bob Jones, because O'Connor is the king of the American empire and he rules his empire from that palace, St. Patrick's Cathedral, the Little Vatican. The ones close to him that maintain order are the Jesuits of Fordham University. The head of Fordham is an Irishman and he's a member of the CFR. The Jesuits at Fordham maintain semblance and rule over the cardinal in New York, and they include Avery Dulles and John Foster Dulles. The Jesuits condemn freedom of speech, freedom of the press and freedom of conscience, so that no man has the right to choose his own religion or to publish what he feels is truth, or the freedom of conscience. Rome is also in control of the drug trade. The Vatican controls all the heroin, opium, and cocaine, everything going around in Colombia. Colombia has a concordat with the Pope. It is a treaty with the Pope. Hitler had one. Mussolini had one. Franco had one. They wanted to set up a concordat in the United States, which was the reason for Reagan formally recognizing the sovereign state of Vatican City in 1984. He was the greatest traitor the US ever had. The whole drug trade is run by high mafia families out of the country of Colombia, subject to the Jesuit general. The Jesuit general ran the opium trade out of China centuries ago. They also ran the silk and pearl trade. The Jesuit black ships trafficked everything they could pull out of the East. The Vietnam War was to consolidate and control this massive drug trade that would inundate every American city with drugs being brought in by the CIA with their Air America, and it was then distributed by the trafficant family throughout the United States, out of Miami. So the Mafia and the CIA were working together in the drug trade as well as in the assassination of JFK. JFK was betrayed at the Bay of Pigs invasion by the CIA, and he signs a memo to take all the power away from the CIA and gives it to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The CIA was built by the Knights of Malta, including Wild Bill Donovan, an Irish Roman Catholic, who are the most fanatical, so he was the first head to solidify the Catholic or Vatican control of it. The Jesuits brought in their top Nazi SS soldiers because the Jesuits were using the SS to kill Jews in Europe. Then, the CIA was composed of the SS. The CIA was then the intelligence arm of the Vatican, and Knights of Malta were throughout. Casey and Angleton were knights. The CIA have a direct link to the Vatican. JFK wanted to end this, and so it became the end of him. Jeremiah Crowley wrote a book in 1912 and says in it that Taft and Teddy Roosevelt were kowtowing to the Pope and the Cardinals of New York, and said that they were going to use the US military to restore the Pope's temporal power around the world. And that was correct. That is American foreign policy, and the Council of Trent is the US foreign policy of today. President Lincoln was not going to go along with the 14th Amendment. He wanted the southern states to re-enter the Union on the same footing that they had left, which would have left us with a federal republic as Washington had established it. This the Jesuits would not allow. It would be converted into an empire. The states would be subordinate provinces to Washington. The 14th Amendment would accomplish this with the reversion of citizenship. Lincoln was re-elected and was ready to end this, and that's why he was killed. The Secreta Monita are the secret instructions which are in a handbook that's given to the professed Jesuits, those under extreme oath. It tells them how to conduct their plans, subjugating peoples and nations to the Jesuit general and thus to the temporal power of the Pope. It tells how they are to deceive. It shows how they are to swindle rich widows out of their fortunes, like they did with Astor's second wife who survived the Titanic. This book cannot be known, and if it's ever published they will deny its existence. You find the greatest resistance to the Jesuits in Catholic countries, by Catholic monarchs. That's why the Roman Catholic monarchs and nobility of today don't dare resist them. The monarchs of Europe won't touch them. The Habsburgs won't touch them because the Jesuits vindicated their powers in the French Revolution and Napoleon's wars. When they tried to suppress the Jesuits again, they were suppressed in Europe and were kicked out of Europe in the 1800s. All the nations of Europe banned them, and World War I and World War II was the payback for it. Since then nobody touches them. The Jesuits were expelled from Japan in 1639 and they never forgot it. They were expelled for over 200 years. So payback time was coming. It was mass firebombings by the American Air Force, financed by the Jesuits as the Jesuits own Lockheed, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas and Grumman, and they used B-29 bombers. You can get the fact that the Jesuits control these companies from Avro Manhattan's the Vatican billions. Great Britain is Jesuit controlled. The Jesuits were protected during their suppression in England when a wealthy landowner gave his estate named Stonyhurst to the Jesuit order. From then on they received protection from King George III. They then used the English Army and Navy in the resistance to Napoleon, who controlled both sides so that the Jesuits can control the outcome. After Napoleon does everything that the Jesuits want him to do, the expulsion of the Knights of Malta, driving Roman Catholics from their throne and imprisoning the Pope for 5 years. He is ordered to abandon his army in Russia, killing all his patriots, which means there will be very few patriots in France once the Jesuits put Louis XVIII back on the throne. He readmitted the Jesuits and stated the Inquisition under the protection of King George III. So it's been since around 1795 that the Jesuits have controlled England. This meant that the English would never go to war with the French again. In the 1800s the Jesuits used the British Empire to further the power of the Pope, so England has been under Rome's control since around 1850 at the latest. Elizabeth II is a wicked, evil queen. She is head of the Knights of Malta in England. She curtsies to the Lord Mayor in Old London, and she goes and visits the Jesuits of Stonyhurst and kisses their ears. She has complete allegiance to the Jesuits of Stonyhurst and will do anything they tell her to do, or they will get rid of her just like they got rid of the rest of the monarchs in Europe. She is a pawn. She's nothing. Remember, white men rule the world. Evil, white, sodomite, homosexual men rule the world, and those are high Jesuits with their Knights of Malta and high Freemasons. They rule. The women that are involved are just pawns in the game, like the Queen of Holland, just to give the appearance that these nations have a sovereign monarch when in fact they are just tools. England has done some awful, terrible things, but all of the things that they have done, increased and benefited the Jesuit order. That means that the British Secret Service is working for Rome. Any pope that resists the Jesuits gets punished or is murdered. All the popes know it. Pius IX was punished. The popes who don't obey, like Pope John Paul I, written about In God's Name, which was written by David A. Yallop in 1984, the Pope was murdered after only 33 days when he didn't go along with the Jesuit order. They ended his life. They kill popes, cardinals, presidents, kings and kaisers to maintain Jesuit power. In their protocols it says that we are merciless. We first have to remember the creation of the nation of Israel. World War I prepared the land for the people. World War II prepared the people for the land. WWII, the Battle of Armageddon, will prepare the people for their Messiah, with national repentance and realizing that Jesus, the Messiah, is the Savior and will deliver them. The present government of Israel was set up by the high Masonic Rothschild-controlled Jews, and Rothschild has had an alliance with the Jesuit generals since 1876, with Adam Weishaupt. This is the very same Rothschild power who betrayed the Jews into the hands of the Nazis, killing many Jews all throughout Europe, betraying their own Jewish people. These are the very same powers that run the nation of Israel today. I read a very interesting paragraph by Mark Lane in his book entitled Plausible Denial, when he tells of a Jew in Israel who wrote about certain criminal Jews involved with the Nazis, who are now with the Mossad. The man who wrote the article was gunned down in front of his home. Rome controls the Israeli government. It controls it through Mossad. We find the fact that Reinhard Gehlen trained the Mossad in the work of Loftus in his book entitled The Secret War Against the Jews. We have high-level treason and betrayal of the Jewish race that is there in Israel today, by their own leaders, who are loyal to Rome and the Jesuit order. And to show this, we have a great big Rockefeller edifice in Jerusalem, and we have an ophthalmology center in Jerusalem run by the Knights of Malta. There's nothing but Knights of Malta, high-level Freemasonry in the Jesuit order running Israel. So what's going to happen, I believe, with the Dome of the Rock is that has got to be removed, somehow, someway. It's on the temple site, so it has to be removed. If I was the Jesuit general, I would make American bombers do it, because I want to create universal hatred for this nation of the United States, because in the States there are more Protestants and Jews than any country in the world, and we've got to kill those people. So what better way than to create a jihad, Muslim fanatical attacks against the United States, coupled with a Chinese invasion? That's what I think will happen. The Jews are not going to destroy the temple site, because if they do, Rome will destroy their efforts of rebuilding it. If Muslims control all of Jerusalem, the temple will never be rebuilt. It has to stay in Jewish hands, because the Jews, and rightfully so, need their own homeland. They are entitled to the nation. They haven't had their own temple of worship and are rightfully entitled to that. What they don't know is that they are being used by the Jesuits to rebuild their own temple, that they would love to have rebuilt for the Pope so he can sit there and be the man of sin, the Antichrist of the Book of Daniel, chapter 9. That's what I see coming for Israel. The assassination of Rabin. He wanted to give away too much and probably wanted to give away some of Jerusalem. The Jesuits wouldn't allow that. So his bodyguards step aside and the Mossad kills him. Rome's Jesuit generals' international intelligence community carries out all high-level assassinations, kills anyone that is against their program. Cromwell knew this, which is why he protected himself with 160 of his finest Ironsides as his bodyguards. The American Pope is the Cardinal of New York. He's the most powerful cardinal in the United States. He is called the military vicar. The military vicar is in command of all the military orders within the United States, they being the Knights of Malta and the Knights of Columbus. He is also in command, and privately, of the Commission, because Cardinal Spellman was an intimate of Joe Kennedy and Joe was an intimate of Frank Costello. Spellman enabled Lucky Luciano to be released from prison in New York to return to Italy in 1946. Luciano's mafia on the East Coast worked in conjunction with the U.S. Navy, supposed to protect the eastern seaboard from German U-boat attack. So as payback, Spellman releases Lucky back to Rome. When the JFK assassination comes up, the Cardinal needs a favor. He's released Lucky, so now the Mafia gets to participate. Jack Ruby, Carlos Marcelo, Santos Trafficant and all the high dons participate because the cardinal in New York controls the commission. That commission controls all of the trucking, all the supermarkets. Its power is beyond our wildest imagination, second only to the Knights of Malta, and they control the Federal Reserve Bank. The cardinal controls the Federal Reserve Bank through the CFR. The CFR belongs to the cardinal. Spellman wasn't a member during his day, but three of the most powerful members were Knights of Malta: Henry Luce, J. Peter Grace and William F. Buckley. Buckley is one of my enemies because I name him, and he's a powerful multi-billionaire who participated in the JFK assassination just like Iacocca, another knight. Both of these men are subject to Cardinal O'Connor and will do anything he says. The head of the Knights of Malta is Flynn. He took over when Grace died in 1993. Flynn is head of the American branch. The head of the worldwide branch, the International Knights of Malta, is Andrew Bertie, an Englishman. You can find that in the National Catholic Reporter. Alexander Haig is a powerful Knight of Malta and his brother is a Jesuit. The High Knights of Malta meet in their palace on Aventin Hill, in Rome. They meet with the Jesuit general. The Jesuits work in conjunction and have regular meetings with the Knights of Malta. The Knights control the money in the banks. They control the Bank of Canada, Federal Reserve Bank, Bank of England. They were the ones behind the sinking of the Titanic with the creation of the White Star Line, J.P. Morgan and others. Alan Greenspan is a Jew, probably a Freemason because he's the leader of the temple called the Federal Reserve Bank, and they always put Jews in the forefront so that they can blame all of what they do on the Jewish race in the United States to create anti-Semitism everywhere. Greenspan, Blumenthal, Warburg, all those Jews need to be publicly rebuked because they are creating the mass genocide of the Jewish race in the United States. The Jews are being blamed for the foreign policy in Bosnia. Madeleine Albright is a Jew and they are blaming her for what's going on in Serbia. It's these Jewish pawns who are loyal to the Pope and the Jesuits who are doing this. The Zionists. The Jesuits are the great Zionists. They control all the historical high Zionists. Theodor Herzl, David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir. Zionism is a Masonic term, coined by the Jesuits. They are the rulers, they are the protocols, they are the elders of Zion. So the Zionists are, indeed, evil and wicked, but they are controlled by Rome. The Jews are not all Zionists. The Orthodox Jews can't stand the Zionists. The Zionists are socialist communists, controlled by Rome. They're atheists, just like the Jesuits. Saddam Hussein was no enemy of George Bush, they were both brothers of the Lodge. Chicago is ruled by the Archbishop of Chicago, a cardinal. Do you think that anything goes down in Chicago without the cardinal's approval? Where was the Nation of Islam founded? Chicago. Where is Louis Farrakhan's, that murderer's mansion? Chicago. He lives like a king. What does he hand out? The protocols of the learned elders of Zion to all of the deluded black Nation of Islam people so that they can hate the Jews, just like the KKK. Those three little tidbits prove that the Nation of Islam is totally under Jesuit control. They are going to be used to foment anarchy and agitation because they have an army called the Fruit of Islam, and they have millions of rounds stored in all the major cities, guns stored everywhere, so that they can start the race war. When that happens, you see, then the brothers in Washington can implement martial law, suspend the Constitution, and now the Jesuits have what they want. They use blacks in the North, who hate their white people, for their own destruction, for the destruction of the black people themselves. The Nation of Islam is part of that. When I was in the Air Force and in jail for 10-15 days around 10 years ago, the Nation of Islam was paramount. All the blacks in jail became Muslims. It's a hate the white man religion. Every white man is a white blue-eyed devil. It's a hate the white man religion designed to foment agitation and unrest. Malcolm X was assassinated by the high leaders of the FBI and the Nation of Islam, and what do they both have in common? High-level shrine of Freemasonry. We have the Masons in control of the Nation of Islam and the Ku Klux Klan, one agitating blacks and the other agitating whites to the glory of the Jesuit order. The other civil rights movement had the Jesuits behind that, with Lafarge. Jesuit Lafarge was a great mover and shaker of the civil rights movements. That agitation resulted in amalgamation, race mixing, the destruction of a white race and a black race, producing a nation of hybrids that cannot maintain free government. They succeeded in the Second Reconstruction in the 1960s but failed with the first. The Jesuits are masters of the races. The only race to successfully resist the Jesuit order were the white Anglo-Celtic, Saxon race with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. The control of the planet by Rome and the Catholic Church should really come as no surprise because it happened before, at least until 1453, and the Great Schism and the fall of Constantinople. Until then, the Roman Church was the authority in the Western world. It lent money and blessings and ruled over kings and queens and controlled the lives of the masses also through fear of the Inquisition and or excommunication.